We created Bangladesh, like India created Pakistan. India created Pakistan. I mean, this is something that some people have a problem, understanding. After all, Quaid-e-Azam did agree to the cabinet mission plan. Or when the more powerful side is not willing to make that type of concession, that's not only fair, but that should show that you are. I mean, the history, I know certain examples where the country powerful says, I can give up that much, so that the other side, the weaker groups, do not feel that they have been exploited, that they have a stake in the bigger unity. Since it was not happening, it may have even started. It's a very difficult thing to say, but it may have even started when Quaid-e-Azam said, you'll also speak. Urdu will be the national language. Many years later, enough number of Indians used to say, what did we gain? We helped Bangladesh attain the freedom, but they cheer Pakistani teams. They still yearn for Pakistan. They still think that it was in 71 was a bad episode. October 1960, that's the day we passed out. 1971, time the war, I was doing staff course in Quetta, 71, which started in January, February, and the war started when we were there. And once the war started, then people were, or just before the war was started, the course was terminated, people got posted to different places. Couple of our colleagues did get posted to East Pakistan at that time. I was not. So lucky or unlucky, whatever one was, because those who went there, most of them came back after 2 years via India. No, I mean, actually, one could see that the situation was pretty bad. For a number of reasons. Even before those elections, there were, those rumblings, people were restless. But after the election, when it happened, the expectation was that we will abide by the results. Despite, Yahya Khan, Bhutto, it will, and that might have been a good thing. But since we did not intend to, and that is what the history is, later on came up and said there were roadblocks put in front of that arrangement by Bhutto, by Yahya Khan, so it was not going to happen. Then the military action took place and we got further worried, because one knows pretty well, even if at that time one knew, some of the people said yes, they have to be taught a lesson, but anyone who was in that business of looking at the things in the historical perspective, in the actual thing, would have said no. It's not going to be right. Military action at this time was out. Sahibzada Yaqub, he was the person who was in charge there. He also sent a message, don't do it. That time is over. If at all it was there, now it's going to be a political settlement. But it didn't happen. Most of us did believe that the military action was not called for. Most of us. Some people said, no, we should do it. I remember some of my colleagues saying, well, Sahibzada Sahib, because of his academic background and so on, he was, making hypotheses, and then went, the man from the salt range, Tika Khan, and he sorted them out. Up to an extent, one could have said, once he had contained the insurgency, latest by that time, the time had come to start negotiations, a political settlement. That's the teaching, there's always been the teaching. Military role is only to contain a situation, not to try and resolve and not to, in insurgencies, in guerrilla warfare, in Afghanistan we have seen, the military's job is only up to that extent that you try and provide space and time to the political leadership to find a political settlement. So once Tika Khan came back and Niazi went, and he, again, true to his reputation, He wanted to again do only the kinetic thing, and he wanted to also go, whole hog with his military. That was the time when everyone was worried, and number of people said, now it seems the thing is over. I don't think so. Anyone at that time said that we have to crack down and, finish the whole thing. Some people may have said we have to crack down a little more, take a little more action before we do that. But no one said that now we have to actually, crush them to the extent that they'll surrender. Oh yes, absolutely. I don't think there was any doubt about that. One could see the writing on the wall. It's, anyone who looks at the, that place, surrounded from three sides by India, population has turned hostile, enough number of people will join the Mukti Bahnis and so on and so forth. And so at that time to say we'll still, make it, we'll still crush them and we'll still come out victorious, I never heard that. In fact, what I heard was that enough number of people from outside also, the Chinese friends and the others said, find a political solution. I mean, we didn't hear very much about that. That time we have to concede that at that time, we didn't hear very much about the atrocities and the rapes. And later on, and all the news was coming, if at all there was a news coming, it was through the Indian sources, through the others. They did talk about it. At that time, people were naturally not very happy because this is not the way you treat anyone, especially your own people. We considered them our own people. It's much later, many years later, that one found out that, and basically because of the work done by Netaji's granddaughter, who wrote that particular book, a very famous book. I'll remember its name. But when she said, no, the atrocities supposed to have been committed by the Pakistani army, they were highly exaggerated, not so many people were killed, not so many women, but that is besides the point. It's not the number that counts. But later on, when we found out, whenever we found out that these things had happened, one felt very sorry with our own people. I mean, there were mixed feelings, frankly. This is what always happens. One saw it coming. No one celebrated it. But as it happens, very often in history, especially in ours, especially those people, fait accompli, something has happened, and you are trying to look at, as any advantage that may have accrued. Well, these people were not going to be with us, and we were not going to leave them. So this was one way, and we are happy that we got rid of them. This is also something that I have heard. But anyone who, after all, we had served together, we were in studies together, we were in academies together, we were in the army together, and we knew our fellow Bengalis, and they would not have said that because their feelings were not anti-Pakistan. They did talk about, a certain unfair treatment that had been meted out to them, and they are more aware of whatever was happening. They would talk about, how the jute was being, they grew it and we were exploiting it, and the type of arrangement that we were making, sometimes denying them the majority, and finally the one unit also we brought them at par, so they had to give up certain things. So they were unhappy with those things and they were very cognizant of those things. But they still were not, they did not want Pakistan army to go and get defeated there. Most of them did not. Some of them, of course, joined the Mukti Bahnis when they thought that this was now something, the things had come to a head. But at that time to say that these people were not going to be with us and not going to be, that was certainly not the right way to think, but some people probably may have said that. But the majority did say, and this is something that I think people later on also not only talked about it, but started believing in it, that we played a greater role in their separation than they did, by not treating them well, and at this time, the critical juncture, not honoring the results of the election, not doing what was always been the teaching, this is how you do. So, no, terribly. And that is where one came to the conclusion, we created Bangladesh, like India created Pakistan. India created Pakistan. I mean, this is something that some people have a problem, understanding. After all, Quaid-e-Azam did agree to the cabinet mission plan. And now people like Advani, especially just one thing, they've also said people responsible for the partition were Patel and Nehru and not Jinnah. But this is what happens when the majority or when the more powerful side is not willing to make that type of concession that's not only fair, but that should show that you are. I mean, the history, I know certain examples where the country powerful says, I can give up that much, so that the other side, the weaker groups, do not feel that they have been exploited, that they have a stake in the bigger unity. Since it was not happening, personalities would always matter, because some decisions have to be taken at that time. But the events are important in the sense that in all the previous years, how many years? 24 years? I think most of the time we were, the establishment here, let me say, it was not giving the Bengalis their due. None of them. It may have even started. It's a very difficult thing to say, but it may have even started when Quaid-e-Azam said, you'll also speak. Urdu will be the national language. Having 2 or 3 national languages is no big deal. But for a people who take pride in that language, whose literature in fact was maybe richer, certainly it's an older language, to them to say, no, for the sake of unity, now Urdu will be imposed upon you. So one could even have started from there. But I think all those events could have been recovered. But over a period of time, when one found out that despite some of the cosmetic moves that we were used to make, get some Bengalis in the army, which was a good thing, frankly, if you ask me. And they did very well in the army, and we were very happy that they were there. We'll create another capital in Bangladesh, the Sufi capital, but not giving them that autonomy that people always look for. And in this case, it's not we who were giving them, the autonomy belonged to them. And we snatched it because of the power that we had, because of the army that we had, because of the political clout, the size, and maybe overall West Pakistan was, if we take the whole balance, was more powerful than East Pakistan. So we denied it. So negotiating 6 points was possible. If you just take the whole package, some people says no, but that means separation, that means, traitor and so on. But you negotiate that. In 6 points, you negotiate, ultimately bring them down to a common denominator of 2 or 3 points that are in their advantage, 2 or 3 points in which they have conceded something. So that negotiations was, I don't think that was done very seriously, like next door Afghanistan. I mean, the points, the Taliban's demands were usually start with a maximalist, agenda. But you can always tone down, you can bring them down through negotiations. But I think that the moment 6 points came up, the reaction generally across the country in West Pakistan was, no, this is something that we could not expect. Though ultimately no one, I do not know if at that time we heard anyone saying, let's at least talk about that. And if the things are gone to that bad an end, then why not settle with something else? A friendly, parting of the way is one, but a confederation type of arrangement, at least try. And that's what I believe, that usually people here, and this is the establishment mind perhaps, and that is they want all or nothing. If we don't get everything else, no, we will not take it. Now the other side will not give you everything, and if you do it very, intelligently, very wisely, you might be able to clinch a couple of things to retrieve that bad situation. It's not a very good situation, frankly. Yeah, it's maybe even considered untenable sometimes. 1,000 miles, hostile country in between. The only thing that ties you, used to say Islam and PIA, and later on one found out that Islam was not enough and the PIA got disrupted. So it was not a very good situation. But we're talking about that particular time, 1969, 70, 71, when it started. And at that time one could have said, I suppose it will not happen and that's why we should part for a number of reasons. Or one would have said, we can give it a better chance by accepting a few things and going even to the extent of saying, confederation. That is what Mujib probably wanted. But I do agree that it was not very easy, especially because of the not only geography but all the whole political environment. It was uncomfortable more for the Indians, these two prongs, than it was for us, if you ask me. It was always, and later on, once it was happened. Now that is, I suppose, the parting thought that I want to leave with your audiences. Many years later, enough number of Indians used to say, what did we gain? We helped Bangladesh attain the freedom, but they cheer Pakistani teams. They still yearn for Pakistan. They still think that it was in 71 was a bad episode. So they were worried that their whatever child that they helped born, that it was not in their benefit. Now we have two hostile countries instead of one. Except that again, for some time it was all right. Sometime one could have played that card, but ultimately the reality took over. And right now, I do not think one is thinking of that option at all. Not only because Khalda Zia did not do very well, or Hasina Wajah seems to have established itself, but I think the reality also probably, in one form or the other, took over the new situation. But even then, who knows? I'm not saying that this is the end of this. After all, the Chinese are more interested in Bangladesh than they are in many other places. So we do not know what type of configuration, what type of combination will come up in the years to come. Yeah.